The bathypelagic zone, sometimes called the midnight zone, lies between 1,000 meters and 4,000 meters. The bathypelagic zone is below the thermocline. The thermocline separates the warm, mixed layers above, where water moves rapidly compared to below, and the deep layers below, where currents slow to a crawl. It is estimated that it takes between 100 to 1,000 years for water to move all the way through these deep ocean currents. Because of this, there is not much mixing of sun-heated water above with the water below. The thermocline also marks the point where sunlight no longer reaches the water below. This means the bathypelagic zone receives almost no sunlight. This is why it received the nickname the midnight zone. The lack of sunlight results in the bathypelagic zone having an average temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, or 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Apart from temperature, the lack of sunlight also affects how ecosystems at these depths work. The absence of sunlight means photosynthesis is impossible. Some creatures here eat falling organic matter that drifts down from above. It was thought that no coral existed below 200 meters, until coral was discovered at far greater depths. Coral has been found at depths of up to 6,000 meters, and almost as many species of deep-sea coral have been found as surface water coral. Because these deep waters don't fluctuate in temperature as much as surface water, these coral exist all over the world. They thrive off the west coast of Canada and Alaska, near Iceland and Norway. They do well in places like these because the currents here help bring them a consistent supply of food. Coral in shallow water usually use photosynthesis, but at these depths, photosynthesis is impossible. Instead, these coral catch falling organic particles, or marine snow, using polyps. The deep-sea mushroom coral has the largest polyps in the ocean. Larger polyps means higher chances of catching something. But the scarcity and low energy output of this food source means it is not a permanent solution for most organisms. To find food, organisms here participate in the largest migration on Earth by biomass. During the Diel vertical migration, microscopic organisms move upwards to the surface at night to feed on phytoplankton. Predators of these animals move to feed on them. This, in turn, attracts larger predators to the convoy. Other creatures also join to feed on or feed off the convoy as it passes. When the convoy reaches the surface, these organisms eat as much as possible before the sun rises. Before sunrise, they return to the bathypelagic zone. If they were to stay out during the day, it is thought they would have trouble seeing because of the bright light and could easily be attacked. Another possible reason could be avoiding ultraviolet radiation. On the surface, sunlight penetrates easily. If these organisms are exposed to large amounts of ultraviolet radiation, it could damage them. Though this migration is responsible for bringing a large portion of food down to these depths, it is not the only way organisms survive. The bathypelagic zone includes part of the longest mountain range on Earth, the Mid-Ocean Ridge, which extends from 65,000 kilometers, or 40,000 miles. This mountain chain is formed by rising magma, which pushes apart two plates and creates new crust, while also pushing together two other plates. This makes the mid-ocean ridge very geologically active. One of the effects of this is many hydrothermal vents. These vents were discovered in 1977 by the Scripps Institute of Oceanography using the Alvin submersible. These vents release heated water that ranges in temperature from 60 degrees Celsius, or 140 degrees Fahrenheit, to 464 degrees Celsius, or 867 degrees Fahrenheit, as well as chemicals such as sulfur. These superheated vents should have been desolate with no life in the area, but the team discovered complex ecosystems of large creatures that could withstand more than 350 degrees Celsius, or 662 degrees Fahrenheit. These were higher temperatures than multicellular organisms were thought to be able to survive. Here, the Institute found eels, crabs, fish, and tube worms. These tube worms were not especially important by themselves, but they were found to use chemosynthetic bacteria to generate food for themselves. These bacteria use energy from chemical reactions to generate sugar. These particular bacteria were using hydrogen sulfide, oxygen, and carbon dioxide in a chemical reaction to produce sugar, sulfur, and water. This chemical reaction was possible because of the continuous supply of necessary chemicals from the vents. These bacteria are necessary for life here because no sunlight is available. It was originally thought that these creatures may have eaten marine snow or falling organic matter, but if they were reliant on this, they would not have been as dense as they were. At these vents, the chemosynthetic bacteria act as the primary producers, with all other creatures relying on them for food. Before these creatures were discovered, it was thought all life was directly dependent on the sun for energy, but this ecosystem does not rely on the sun for energy, instead depending on chemicals from ocean vents. These vents may even offer a view of how life may have begun on Earth, with the chemosynthetic bacteria possibly being related to the oldest organisms on the planet. However, there are other ways for creatures here to exist without the sun's energy. In the Gulf of Mexico, there are hundreds of brine pools varying in size between 1 meter, or about 3 feet in diameter, to nearly 20 kilometers, or about 12 miles in diameter. These pools only form in the Gulf of Mexico because there is an underlying layer of salt under the sediment in this region. Most organisms that venture near these pools will be killed by the extremely high salinity and the dissolved methane in the water. Yet on the coast of these brine pools, large groups of organisms live. Chemosynthetic bacteria thrive here, but unlike the bacteria of the hydrothermal vents, these bacteria use methane for their reaction instead of sulfur. Mussels were found surrounding the pools and surviving on the bacteria. This is yet another example of organisms that are specially adapted to live at these extreme depths. All organisms here have their own way of dealing with the difficulties of living here, from reaching out to the surface water for food to harnessing the energy of hydrothermal vents. It is a great example of evolutionary adaptations to deal with a very specific environment. It shows us how marine ecosystems interact with each other, how animals adapt in the oceans to their environments, and even how life may have started.